is full of dark and scary secrets. Something is always lurking just out of sight. Today on Local Myths and Mysteries, we're going to a quiet town in Ontario called Trenton. It all started in 1864. Trenton was just a small port town, relying heavily on the passing ships for the import of goods and the stimulation of the local economy. A young sailor, William Gunning, was unloading one of these ships when he had the misfortune of meeting the local, Clara George. Orphaned at the age of 14, she'd spent her life living in the forest of Mount Pelion, seldomly entering town. There was always talk around town about her secret rituals and animal sacrifices. No one was brave enough to seek out her shack to confirm the allegations definitively. Little was known about what she said to William Gunning, but he immediately left his post and began to follow Clara through the town before they disappeared into the woods. Although the occurrence was strange, the town folk thought little of it until the rise of the full moon. It was the first Saturday of November, an unseasonably warm evening had fallen upon the town, the end of an Indian summer. Just before sundown, the local vet Jameson Henry ran into the streets, violently shrieking that all the animals had been brutally murdered within his clinic. Shortly after, the other pet owners began to fill the streets with the cries that their beloved pets and livestock had shared the same demise. The local police promptly began an investigation. It was determined it was in fact caused by a human, but who? The townfolk promptly entered the city hall to discuss the happenings and how to proceed, when the stench of fire began to burn the nostrils of the attendees. The port had been set ablaze, crippling the town's ability to bring in new supplies and making it near impossible to leave the Forsaken. With most of the folk being at a meeting, it narrowed down the possible suspect list. Where was William Gunning while this happened? He was to be watching over the ships. And someone shouted that they had seen him enter the forest of Mount Pelion, none other than Clara George. The town roared, "Witch, witch, witch." A mob quickly formed, led by the local police and mayor. They began the search of the forest, torches in one hand, axes in the other. Finally, in the dark, a scream pierced the night, chilling the blood of all those in earshot. Yet following the cries, which grew louder and louder and filled with more pain as they grew closer and closer. Finally, the hanging trees broke open, and there stood Clara, blood-soaked and black-eyed. She looked less human and more of a beast. She smiled at the mob before raising her hands straight-armed above her head. She shrieked the most terrible sound heard, deafening those closest and shattering windows in town. As they slowly recovered from the roar, she began to chant, "Curse this land, curse this town, death to everything around," before plunging her hand into the chest of William. He tried to scream, but nothing could come out. Clara then ripped her hand out of his gaping chest, holding it above her head, only this time clutching his still beating heart. As she snarled and cackled, one of the townsfolk crept behind her and grabbed her as tightly as he could. While the witch wailed and screamed, the others nearest jumped in to assist the capture. Although they eventually forced her to the ground, the witch was able to bite the throat out of one capturer and slice the belly of another. Under order of the mayor, the witch was bound on sight while a pyre was built. Once attached, the townsfolk cast their torches upon it, slowly setting her ablaze. As they watched, the witch shrieked and cried her curses upon the town and the people, until finally silence, except for the crackle of a dying fire. After the ashes had smoldered, her bones were collected and buried deep in the woods, where few would ever know to look, much less dare to venture. Although it's been over 150 years, I believe I found her remains. I'm leaving this video So if I don't return, someone knows where to look. I will mark my trail with red ribbons, and I'm marking where the final fire was lit. Should I make it to her grave, I'll dig up her remains and mark her with a cross before properly destroying them. I must go now, as I can feel her power growing over me. She must be stopped.